Welcome to the Lunch and Learn video series brought to you by the Gateway Down Syndrome Association. Today we will learn more about One Classroom with our guests Kyle Van Frank and Colleen Mooney. One Classroom is a foundation making inclusion possible in St. Louis Catholic schools by providing funding and expert resources to parish schools.
We'll hop right in. So, just a little bit about us. We're a local nonprofit that is supporting the inclusion of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Catholic schools here in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. And if you're not familiar, those boundaries are the city of St. Louis, the county of St. Louis, and 10 surrounding counties here on the Missouri side of the metro. So we serve schools out in Washington, down in St. Genevieve, up in St. Charles, and everything in between. We are a Catholic organization that was founded and inspired by the family that you see here on the screen. This is the Armitage family. Tony and Leanne had their older daughter Mary there in their local parish school. And when they found out that their younger son Chris, who was born with Down syndrome, would not be able to join Mary, they had to come up with a plan. They couldn't imagine a world where their siblings, their children as siblings, weren't going to go to school together, where they wouldn't get to experience the same upbringing and education. And as a Catholic family, deeply desired that religious formation as a part of their children's schooling. And so Leanne started traveling the country, meeting other families, other organizations, and really figuring out how other Catholic schools were doing this across the country. And so, inspired by her passion and her drive for making connections across the country and Tony's background in business, they founded One Classroom to be able to provide monetary support and training and resources for schools to be able to include students with intellectual developmental disabilities. Both Mary and Chris graduated from Mary Queen of Peace and Webster Groves, their parish school. And so, what started there 10 years ago has really flourished to something beautiful across our archdiocese here in St. Louis. So why inclusion? Why this work that we do? I know that we're not having to sell anything with a group like we're with today, which is nice. Colleen and I always like to be in a group that gets it, right? But to sort of explain our background, we're really grounded in this idea that every child is a gift, right? And that the work of an inclusive educational environment reflects our teachings as a Catholic Church regarding the dignity of all human persons, regardless of their ability and their ability to learn. And that through that work, we create a more just society. We also understand that this is building the values and the morals that inclusion brings, not just for students with disabilities, but for every student in the classroom, and that all students are learning in an atmosphere of acceptance, unconditional love, and really enriching the values that we're teaching in our faith in a really practical way to be lived out. And we know that it really works, right? A large body of research shows us that when children are educated in inclusive environments, they have higher academic gains, that they have greater success post-secondary education. Students are more likely with disabilities to live independently, to gain employment. We also know that neurotypical peers have improved academic outcomes and often benefit from social emotional development that's not present in a segregated environment. So we know that academic, spiritual, and social emotional, the things that our Catholic schools are built to help serve students, are all improving for all students when we embrace a more inclusive environment. And so how we approach this, we have four programming areas that we do. So we have our school grants. These are monetary grants that help fund staff salaries. So we deliver grants around $500,000 or more each year to local Catholic schools to support the salaries of paraprofessionals, learning consultants, any staff that might be necessary to support students with extra learning needs. We also support technology, training, ongoing formation for teachers, and other services like BCBA therapy for students within the school. We also engage in a significant degree of professional development. Colleen, who is going to talk here after me in just a little bit, conducts a significant amount, about 20 hours a week of training for teachers, workshops, observations, coaching, support We also partner with institutions of higher education like Webster University, St. Louis University to offer ongoing training and education for our teachers. We know that while sometimes finances might seem like the primary obstacle for Catholic schools, we know that more so to make inclusion successful, the greatest obstacle is being able to deliver teachers the education, the resources, and the training that they need to be able to serve students of all learning abilities in their classroom. It's the major priority of ours. We also work with parents and with families who of the students that we're supporting in local schools to build community awareness, share resources. Um, and lastly, we do advocacy and engagement work with local, state, and federal government agencies, with parishes, the larger archdiocese. I was on a call this morning with a group in Providence, Rhode Island. So we do some work with folks around the country to support and collaborate on their efforts, and organizations like the Gateway Down Syndrome Association. And annually, the impact of that work looks like serving over 110 students across 30 schools, um, and delivering thousands of hours of training. So, like I said, somewhere between five and $600,000, depending on the year, delivered to schools through professional development, therapies, school grants, thousands of hours for over 110 students at 30 partner schools. I'm going to pass it off to Colleen, who's going to deliver some more information about, okay, what does that look like on a practical level in some of our schools?
I'm in charge of programming for one classroom. So that means that I get to go into the schools and help out. I can train teachers, paraprofessionals, learning consultants are basically what we call special educators within Catholic schools. So when we're using that term, know that we're talking about special educators and giving professional development. I'm going to go through a couple of our schools here, and what I want you to look for as I'm talking through these, there are two main points here. Number one is every school does things a little bit differently, and that's okay. And then also it takes a team. So, we have, when we're serving students with Down syndrome, we're looking for a team of people to help. We're not just counting on a classroom teacher alone. We're bringing in other staff and other experts to make sure that that child is educated properly and reaching their full potential. This picture here, we have Mary Kate. She attends St. Gabriel the Archangel in South City. That is one of the schools that we support. I was just there this morning. It's a wonderful place, but she is in 7th grade. St. Gabe's supports Mary Kate, but they also have several other students there who we help support as well, who have autism and other learning needs. Staffing looks different at every school. At St. Gabe's in particular, they do not use paras to support students. I personally love that. I think paras are fantastic, but I also think that sometimes they can be overused and really kind of impede a student's social learning. It's hard to engage with peers when you have an adult kind of standing between you all the time. Again, for some students, they are fantastic and we pay for a lot of them. But for a lot of kids, they don't need it. And just because your child has a certain diagnosis, if they have an intellectual disability or Down syndrome, that doesn't mean that you automatically have to have a para for your student. So at St. Gabe's, they don't use paras. They have a special educator and a team there. Mary Kate has modified curriculum across the board, but she gets pulled out to reach her own goals in reading and math. And she works one-on-one with a special educator there. They also have they have two special educators at the school. They also have a full-time counselor, social emotional learning, and some interventionists as well. Mary Kate's hope is to go to a Catholic high school, and we'll talk about some more schools here in a minute. We have 2 Catholic boys' schools on board. We're still working on the girls' schools, so hopefully in the next year and a half or so, we'll make that happen for her. The next school I want to highlight, this is Incarnate Word in Chesterfield. So Incarnate Word, they were one of the early adopters when one classroom started about 10 years ago. So they have actually graduated out 3 students who have Down syndrome. They have one there right now. She is pictured there. She is precious. And they also have students who have lots of different needs. So they have recently changed from having an inclusion program to being an inclusive school. And those words, I mean, it doesn't sound like they would matter, but they matter greatly to me because when you have an inclusion program, that indicates that things are still kind of separate versus an inclusive school where we are just a school and we are serving all of the students who come to our doorstep. And that's what Incarnate Word is adopting now. So they have a resource coordinator who heads up any students who need modified curriculum. They also have a learning consultant to help with students who have milder needs. And they have subject area specialists to pull out small group and one-on-one for any student who is struggling. They do have several paraprofessionals who work with a lot of different students, not just our student here with Down syndrome. Maybe it's a student who has dyslexia and just needs some one-on-one support for reading class. They might have a para helping at that time, but they use several part-time paras to help with that.
I'll just point out, Colleen,
Yeah.
one of the things that you have here that I think is fantastic. Incarnate Word is one of our oldest partners, and so 3 students with Down syndrome have graduated from Incarnate Word, and
Mhm.
they're one of the few schools that I think have been with us long enough that we're starting to see the full cycle, right? Of it's been going on so long that the people who started the program don't even work there anymore, and it's really institutionalized into the culture.
Christ the King in University City. So they have 4 students with Down syndrome who attend Christ the King. 3 of those students are in 5th grade. And then they have a 2nd grader who has Down syndrome as well. And they also have a child who has autism too. So their staffing model, they have a student support coordinator who oversees all of the special education needs of the building. And they also have interventionists, excuse me, for different subject areas for any student who needs extra help. They employ paras. Their 5th graders share a para, so they do a lot of small group work all together. And then they have a couple of part-time paras again to help with any student who might need a little bit extra support. Christ the King strives not to turn any student away, and they've been serving students with Down syndrome for about 6 years now, and doing a really good job. And they've had a couple different principals and different student support coordinators come in, and things shift around. But what has stayed consistent there is just their support for their students, and it's working really well. Next, okay, DeSmet Jesuit High School. So DeSmet came on board, I guess, 3 years ago. But they are the first boys Catholic high school in the area to accept students with intellectual disabilities. So they have 3 students who have Down syndrome currently attending. 2 of them are juniors. One is a sophomore. They have an inclusion coordinator there who does all the programming and modifications for these 3 gentlemen. And she also runs a peer mentor program. The peer mentor program is really the heart of the program. And I mean, the inclusion coordinator there is turning kids away. There are so many who want to be peer mentors. It is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And so whenever our 3 boys there are in the regular class, they have a peer mentor with them, helping them with any of the modified work that has been given to them by the inclusion coordinator. So that program in itself is huge. I think there are 48 boys right now who are peer mentors, and she has to rotate them through regularly just to use as many of them as possible. So the boys there are pulled out for reading, math, and science to work on their own personal goals. And as they get older, they're starting to do a little more life skills work. She's looking for employment for them in the community. They have their own kitchen there. You can smell cookies baking whenever you go to DeSmet. They love doing that, but they're really a part of the school, and the peer mentors again are just the greatest thing to see. Their students there get modified diplomas. Some of the boys' families are choosing to do a deferred diploma, which means they will not get their diploma until they're 21. So they will walk at graduation with their peers, and then they could still use their public services until the age of 21, and then they would get their modified diploma then. I think one of the boys is going to go ahead and take his diploma with his peers. But just a few things to think about down the line if you have young kiddos. St. Francis Borgia Grade School. So this is in Washington, Missouri. So they have 2 students there right now who have Down syndrome and several others with varying levels of support needs. They have a part-time resource coordinator who does all the modifications and oversees everything for their students with more significant needs. They have 2.5 paras, some interventionists, and they also have speech therapy available that parents can pay for. They also have one of our students who requires the most support of any of our students who we serve. She does not have Down syndrome, but she has cerebral palsy, and she is fed through a tube and is in a wheelchair and communicates through a device. It's been really neat to see kind of the spectrum of students that all of our schools are accepting now, from what started 10 years ago as a couple students who have Down syndrome to now a whole range of diagnoses within our schools. Mary Queen of Peace. So this is where One Classroom was started by the Armitage family 10 years ago. Currently, they have 1 student with Down syndrome. They graduated out 2 boys. One of them is at DeSmet now. The other one is at St. Mary Southside Catholic Academy. And they are both thriving and doing great. But at Mary Queen, they have 1.5 learning consultants, a reading teacher, a counselor, and 2 paras who split their time between several of the students. So other schools within the Archdiocese right now who are serving students with Down syndrome: Our Lady in Festus, Sacred Heart in Florissant, St. Agnes down in Bloomsdale, St. Joseph in Josephsville, St. Mary Magdalene in Brentwood, and St. Mary Southside High School. So these are just schools who we are supporting financially through grant dollars who have students with Down syndrome. There are some other schools who we support who do not have students with Down syndrome, but who have a wide range of other disability types. All Saints Academy, that is in North County, Holy Family down in Arnold. JP2 it's not an archdiocesan school, but it is a Catholic school. It is actually a homeschool, traditional school hybrid model. There are 2 campuses, one in St. Charles and one in Afton. We give them grant money to support students as well. Our Lady of the Lourdes in University City, Pillar, St. Francis of Assisi in South County, St. Clement in West County, St. Joseph's in Cottlesville and in Josephsville, St. Justin Martyr, St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, St. Margaret of Scotland, St. Patrick's, St. Paul in St. Paul, Missouri, another Sacred Heart in Valley Park, and Ascension in Chesterfield are all schools we are serving with grant money and professional development and training right now. Coming soon, we will probably be adding some schools for next year. We have some applicants in our grant process currently right now at Seton Regional, Valley High School, St. Peter in Kirkwood, Saints J and A, and St. Ambrose on the Hill. So we have been growing every single year since we started 10 years ago, which is amazing to see. And we're really grateful to be able to do that. A couple of tips for parents. Explore all of your options. Times have really changed from when we started 10 years ago. There really were very few options for parents of what to do with their children who have disabilities, especially with Down syndrome. The option was your public school. But now there are more schools who are willing to accept diverse learners. So do your homework, do your research, and create some options for yourself. Go see a lot of different types of schools. Don't underestimate your child. I have a son who has a rare genetic disorder called Soto syndrome. And I mean, if I would have gone off of everything the doctors told me when he was born, what he would be doing, my life would look completely differently. So don't underestimate. They will do more than the doctors and everyone is telling you they're going to do. They're going to blossom and they're going to grow, and it's beautiful. Be confident in knowing your child. I know from my own personal experience, I guess it wasn't until I had my son until I realized that not everybody knows everything. Before that, I trusted the doctors, I trusted the teachers, and they're all experts in their own fields. But knowing that you are mom or dad and you know your child the best, and you have those instincts to really go with them and trust yourself when you're making decisions for your child. Advocate with love, I like to say. We've hit a lot of resistance along the way with getting kids into Catholic schools. And usually that resistance is because they truly just want to do the right thing and they want to be able to educate children the way they deserve to be educated. It's usually not from a bad place. So when we meet that with curiosity and with love and making sure that expectations are the same, that things just go a lot more smoothly. My last little plug here, even if you do decide to go to private schools, still go through the process, get an IEP. If you are going to private school, you can register for Most Scholars money, which will give you $6,000+ to take with you to a private school that you can use for tuition money. But you have to have an IEP through your local school district in order to do that. It can't be through private testing or any other way. You have to get the IEP. And in a Catholic school, that will become a service plan. It will no longer be an IEP, but it's still run through your LEA or your local school district. My last piece of advice, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like I tell our schools, this is a team approach. And as a parent, I can tell you it also takes a team. So please reach out. You can always reach out to us or any other organization for help when you need it.